What's up, guys? Welcome to another video. In this one we're going to be talking about Git. So the last video I pretty much jumped into the project structure of our code. Then I realized, wait, hold on, they probably need to know how to work with their repository. So again, like I mentioned, Git is your code repository where you're going to back up your code, where you're going to store it, where you're going to upload new code, where you're going to update your code, and then there's a lot of other things you can do if you're working with other people, creating branches, things like that. But for the purpose of this video, it's going to be very brief, very high level. I'm just going to show you how to simply push code to a new repo. So with that, what you'll need to do first is download Git. Basically, if you have whatever platform you have, they have a client available for each platform. So go ahead and do that. Pause the video, download Git, install it, and then come back. So if you already have it installed, cool. If you go to guys.github.com, you can find plenty of documentation of Git, everything you can do with Git. They even have their own example of everything, basically. But anyways, so I'm going to no, that's not what I want to show you. Oh wait, yeah, it is. So here's a outline of what I talk about today. So we talked about Git Bash. Actually, this should be up over here. So I want to talk about SSH keys. So real briefly, so in order for you to push your code to your repo, it's a secure connection, right? So Git needs to know your computer, and your computer needs to be able to tell Git, hey, I am who I say I am. This is my identity. Blah blah blah. You can trust me. So basically, the way that's done is with SSH keys. Pretty simple. You just where is it? SSH keygen. When you download Git Bash, you just run this command right here, and you're going to go through these steps. By default, it's going to put your SSH keys under this directory right here. So this looks like a it's actually going to be right here. If you're using Windows, I'm a Windows user, obviously, but this is by default where it's going to store your keys. You're going to have a public key and a private key. So that's where that's going to be stored. You can change it if you want. Recommend just leave it how it is. Enter a passphrase if you'd like. Then your key is going to be generated, and then you're going to have basically what I just showed you, this. So what you want to do is take your public key, which is going to look something like this right here, this guy, and you're going to put it in here where it says SSH in your GitHub profile, or you go to settings, you go here, you go to settings, right? And then we're already here, and then you go to SSH, you go to add new SSH key, you paste that in there. Bam, your Git is tied to your computer now. So now you can upload to Git. So again, if you want to know more about Git, I'm going very fast, going very brief. You can check out the guides and documentation. There's a lot of documentation out there, even on YouTube, So okay, that's that. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and create a new repo on Git. And so there's different ways of doing it, right? You can well, first you got to create a new repo here, and then here, let's just go ahead and do that then. So let's call it git sample. Cool, create it. Bam. Okay, now we have an empty project on Git on your repo. So like I said, there's different ways of doing it, which are described here. The way I'm going to do it is here, because we're going to generate a brand new project, and then we're going to push it to this existing repository, right? So if I go, so now to generate, you should have already learned how to generate a new Angular 2 project. I'm going to do it all over again, just so you guys can see what's going on. So let me pull up git bash, and basically the way I do this is all my documents and stuff, right? You right click on the folder that you want to, where you want to create your project in, and then when you right click, here, let me just do something real quick. Okay, so basically I create all my projects in dev. So I right click here, I go git bash here, so, and that pulls up this little dialog, right? So this is git bash, this is what you just downloaded. So here what we're gonna do is, first obviously we're gonna generate a new project like we've done before. Ng-new, just call it the same thing, git sample. I always like to include routing by default. I don't know why they didn't include that by default, but should have been. And then I am a Sass guy, so just put that. Enter. It's going to generate a new project for you. And then after that, once that's done, you're going to cd into the folder that's just created. Cd means change directory, and you basically go from this directory to one level deeper, so it's going to be / git sample, right? So you want to get into there, and then I found that Angular CLI already initiates it as a git project, so you don't have to run git init, which is typically the first command you want to run. Let me see, right here. Git init is typically the first command you want to run to initialize that folder as a Git repository, right? So the way Git works is, very high level description is you have a local repository, and then you have a remote repository, which is this right here, this project right here. This is your remote repository. So if you can see here, the way we tie our local repository to this repository is with this line right here. You're going to add a remote and give it the URL, and then you're going to push to it. So let me see if this thing is done here. Where is it? Okay, it's still installing npm node packages. So there's some default node repositories that are downloaded every time you generate a new project. That's what takes the longest time. So git init will already be done for you after this is finished running, right? So after that, you basically, so again, you have the concept of local repo and remote repo, right? So your local repo just lives on your computer. So first you push to your local repo on your computer, and then you push to the remote repo, which is Git, which is this guy up here, right? So this command is the next one you run, git add, and the dot signifies add everything. Obviously we want to add everything because we just generated a new project. So this pretty much adds all the files to your local repo. Then you want to commit to your local repo. You've already added all the files. Now you need to commit all the files to the local repo. After that, we'll run those two commands that we saw up here. Basically, you add the origin and then you push to it. So Git is a very powerful tool. It has a lot of commands, it has a lot of functionality, and it can go way into a big rabbit hole. But again, for the purpose of this video, I'm just going to give a very brief description. Side note, if you're not familiar with Sass, basically it's the same thing as CSS. It's just a superset. So that's why I always like to run that command or give it that flag of style SCSS. So SCSS slash Sass is, again, a superset. It's basically, it's added functionality on top of CSS. You can do way more things with it than just give it color. You can actually add functions. You can do way more things. So if you're interested in learning more about Sass, I believe Sass, what's the deal? What's the URL for it? And I'll post all these links in the description. So sasslang.com. This is basically Sass. Yes, that's the superset. Again, I'll post all these links, and so you guys can look more into that. Let's see if this thing is done generating project. Are you done? Okay, great, it's done. So now, like I said, we cd change directory into, first if we do ls, that means, you know, list everything that's in here. So what did we call it? Git sample. So cd git sample. Whoops. Okay, so now if we do another ls, this is the project structure that we just generated, right? This is what I was talking about last video, all these files and everything they mean. So now that we're inside of this directory, now we can tell it, hey, you know, push all this code to the repo. So where is it? Right here. Okay, so we want to push to this repo, right? So what we do is, obviously, it's already Git init is already it's already been initialized as a Git repository. So if I try again, you'll see reinitialized, right? So that's already happened. So then we want to git add all the files that are in this local repository, or folder, to the local repository. Now we want to commit all those files. Add a message. Sweet. We've committed that to our local repo, right? So now that we've done that, we want to push to the remote repo, basically this guy. So again, we'll run this command. There's the URL. Basically, this guy is pretty self-explanatory. It's saying, hey, this is my remote. This is where you're going to push to. So set that up. Bam. Now all we need to do is push to the repo. So bam. And then you can set Git up to where you don't have to enter your password. I just like to do that for security. So now if we refresh this, bam, there's all your code. This is the default README. It's always going to show up like this. And this is what your code base is going to look like, right? So this is where you're going to see all the details about your code, what's been committed, how many branches there are, how many releases, how many people have been contributing to your code base. Again, Git is a very powerful tool. There's a lot of management that goes into this. Well, you can do a lot of management within this space, right? So let's talk about branches really quick. So branches are basically, if you always want to have a master branch that is clean, is working, has no bugs, and it's typically going to be the copy of your code base that is in production. Then typically you want to have a certification branch and a development branch. So certification basically means test environment. Development branch basically means, obviously, development environment. That's where you're going to be developing off of. So you always want to have a test environment so that you can test your changes before you go to production. Because if you push some changes to production and it breaks, you're going to be in bad shape. So you want to test your changes in a test environment, aka cert, before, or whatever you want to call it. Typically I call it cert, so that you can test those things. So now onto the dev branch, you want to keep your dev branch is all. You also want to keep it to where it's clean, it's working, there's no issues, um, so that every iteration of development you can branch off of that, off of develop branch. So basically, let's say I have, let's say I have a development branch, right? When I want to add a new feature to my site, I'm gonna branch off of development, and then I'm gonna call that branch whatever I want. So let me actually just do that. So what is it? Git branch dash b new branch. So what this is saying is, hey, create a new branch, and this is gonna be the name, right? So did I not do that right? What's the new branch command? Git branch. I always forget these damn commands. You gotta look it up. Git new branch. Mind you, I run this command. I run all these commands all the time, but I always forget. What's the damn command? Git checkout B. I was almost there. Okay. Check out. Sweet. All right. Now we have a new branch. Right? So that's how you basically make a new branch. But so let's go back to master. So you can do, if you do this, you can check out all your branches, right? So we know we have a master branch. We know we have this new branch that we just created, and then on the remote repository in Git, we only have one branch, right? We only have one branch because we haven't pushed this new branch. Whenever you make a new branch, you have to push it. So that's that. Let's talk about, again, development, right? So when you're in development, you want to, let's just make another branch. Or let's just check out master, git check out dash b dev, right? So this is typically how you would do it. So now we have dev, master, new branch. We can delete this new branch. I was just doing that for example. But basically, so now we're on dev, right? Now we're on dev. So this is a clean working repository, clean working branch for everyone to branch off of to do their work. That way, no one is stepping on each other's toes. No one is committing on, the same branch, and his changes are not going to bring her changes, or vice versa. That way, everyone has a clean working repository to work off of and build their new features on. Now, this is considering you're working with multiple people. If you're working on your own, it's typically okay just to have dev, cert, and master. Now, okay, so then when everyone's done working on their features, you merge your branches up into the master branches. So let's say we have something branched off of dev. Let's call it feature header, right? We need to create a header on our website. So I'm gonna make a new branch off of dev, right? So that means I'm going to be on the development branch. So here I'm on the master branch, right? Here I'm on dev. Here I'm on dev. Here I'm on new branch. So when I'm on dev, I'm going to create a new branch, and it's going to branch off of development branch, not master, not new branch, off of development. If I'm on development, it's going to create it off development. Okay. So after that, if you use IntelliJ, or WebStorm, or any IDE like this, for example, it's pretty easy to push your code. Come on, work. Open. Typically, I do it through here. You can do it through here, but basically what you want to do is take your feature branch, of course, make sure it's working, and then you're going to merge it into dev. Okay, so let me see if this thing, why is it being so slow? Okay, great. So now let's say I made some changes, and this thing is really slow, I guess because I'm recording. But let's say I made some changes, I made a header, right? And I'm ready to push all my changes up. So what I'll do is I'll go to Git. If I added new files, IntelliJ will ask you, do you want to add it to your local repo? It'll typically say yeah whenever you create a new file. If not, this is the way I do it. Really, come on. All right, this thing is going really slow, but no. Okay, Git and then commit directory. Obviously, I have no changes. All right, God damn it. Let's make a little change then, because clearly this is a working directory. There's no changes. This is really slow. Okay, so this and okay, let's just add a new line. Great. Now we have some changes. Oh, yeah, so you see that the file turned blue. That means it has some changes. When you add new files, they're going to be green. Again, this is for IntelliJ or WebStorm or IntelliJ. Any IDEA IDE. If you're using Eclipse, might look a little different, but basically it's the same process. You make your changes and then you commit and push. So commit directory is going to do this little deal here, and then it's going to tell me, okay, here are your changes. What do you want your commit message to be? And it has these other options here. And then I can just commit, or I can commit and push. So this commitment, everything I'm doing right here is basically everything that I had already done here, right? So the git add, the git commit, you know, it's all being done for you here. So when I added initial commit, where did I put it? Right here, see? So git commit -m initial commit, that's exactly what this is. So pretty straightforward. So let's see what it looks like. Go through that process. Whoop, nope, not add. We already added everything. Git commit. All right, sample change. So okay, so note here, good practice is. I'll talk about Agile a little bit in another video, but good practice for commit message, you want to keep a good format, because when you look at your commits on Git, they're going to look like this, right? So they're going to have a message and some other details. So you want to have like a high level first line message to better understand all your commits from a first glance, right? So typically, let's say that extra line I added, you know, let's say that change was the header. So I'm just gonna say this was feature header, and if I'm working in a team, I'll usually put my name. In Agile, you usually have a backlog of tasks, which each task has a number assigned to it. So I would put 0 project number 1 2 3 4 5, whatever. That's a funny thing. So, and then here, you know, I'll typically just, I did this, I did that, I did this, right? So this is good structure. This is good practice to keep here. So yeah, I'll just commit that. Give a commit push. You can review the errors if you want. Let's check them out, right? What are the errors here? Unknown. A lot of these errors you won't want to pay attention to. They're not going to break anything. They're just kind of warnings, right? So if you are okay with all those warnings, do this all over again. Your commit message is still going to be there. So you just go ahead, commit and push. Commit. It's going to commit. You see right here, performing VCS commit. And then, oh, what happened? Oh, my, I thought this was already assigned. What happens if I do that? Alright, I thought I already did that. Oh, I guess it didn't do it through IntelliJ. So anyways, let's just go ahead and add the repo here, the URL. Where's my deal? Basically, it wants to know where. WebStorm wants to know where to push it. We've already told Git Bash how to do it, but this guy doesn't know. So we're adding that, and then he's gonna push to it. So hopefully we get no errors. Sweet. So see all the changes here, and pushing master. So this bottom right here, this tells you what branch you're on. If you do, okay, so now it pushed, right? Push rejected, push to origin master rejected. Why? Why, bro? Why did you do that? Okay, so if it didn't reject it, that's all you would have to do, and then your code would be uploaded. So let me do a VCS git fetch real quick. Git fetch basically says, hey, go out to the remote repo and get all the branches that are up there. So there's not going to be anything up there, only just master, I believe. Okay, so yeah, verified that. Current branch master. You can also make new branches here if you need to, as opposed to the git bash command line tool. And that's pretty much it. That's how you push your code. That's how you make a new repo. You guys already know how to make a new project. And yeah, let me see real quick why this wasn't working. Let's take a look into the fetch successfully, push rejected. Why did you reject? Yeah, why did you reject? Usually it tells you errors, but commit directory, nothing changed, push. So this right here, this terminal is basically the same thing as your git bash, right? So it's just a command line tool. Git push. Come on, bro. So it seems like IntelliJ is not. Okay, so this is telling me there's no tracking information for the current branch. Please specify which branch you want to merge with. Git pull, whatever. Tracking information. Alright, so if I would do this in here, it probably would already do it. I'm gonna go ahead and fix it down here, but I want to see if it does it up here too. Yeah. No, not that. Okay, maybe that's why it's screwing up. I got two branches going on. So git pull remote master, because we're on master. Remote. Let's see what's going on to origin master. Master? Is that what you want? No, that's not it. Let's try this guy right here. Git branch. Right here, bro. Git branch. Set upstream to origin. Master. Did I spell that? No, I did not spell that right. Upstream to. Let's see what that does. Okay, great. Now, so git branch set upstream to origin master. So basically, this is saying, hey, push to this branch of the remote repo, right? And we're looking at this branch. So push this branch to that branch, basically. So branch master set up to track remote branch master from origin. So now it knows what branch to push from which branch. So if I do a git push, bitch. I always stumble on this. Am I merging now? What is it doing? Auto merging, conflict merge. Git add all, git merge, no, not git merge, git commit, and merge, git push, and success. We've pushed to our branch. So let's look at what it says here. Objects, compression, writing objects, total, remote. So I'm thinking this made a bunch of changes. So this is the commit ID. Let's go check it out on Git, see what it looks like. Where you at? Commits. So let's refresh this page and see what happened. Okay, so we did the initial commit, and then we did that local commit for the change in the header, right? And then we had to do another merge commit because I wasn't tracking it. What the branches weren't tied together, it wasn't tracking. So I had to do like all these commands that I ran over here. And so now it knows that, hey, from master branch, push to this master branch, right? So, and then when I did the push, it pushed all of the commits that I did. So, didn't mean to get into that much detail, but I did. So, figured it's better to be more descriptive than not. But basically, that's how. Oh, look at that! It added some nasty merge code. So this is what happens when you merge and you don't resolve your conflicts. You're gonna have some ugly code, some ugly things inserted into your code. So I don't know why they're still there. I already resolved those conflicts. Bastard. All right. Go back. Let me see. I want to see what the files look like. That index file. If it really looks like that. Oh yeah, look. So I need to take those out. So again, this happens when you did it the way I did it. Basically, this is not going to happen all the time. Really, when you make a change, all you should have to do is git commit and then git push. And that will push all your code up to your repo. So kind of went a little bit of a long way, but that is a brief description of how Git works, how to push your code to your repo. You can, so if you have other team members working on it, you can add them to it. I think it's through here. Is it through here? I don't want to do that. But basically, you can share your repo with other people. If you have other people working on it, you can give them access. Tons of things you can do with Git. Very powerful, very useful. So if you have any more questions, you can shoot me a message, or you can check out the GitHub guys. They're very descriptive, very helpful. I hope this was helpful for you guys, and if you have any questions, just drop me a line. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So, happy 4th of July.